Hi, everyone. We have my ex-colleague turned really sweet friend, Rajashree Balaram with us. Rajashree is a journalist and a screenplay writer. And as she describes herself to me, she's somebody who can never have enough of dried flowers, starlit skies, and the many broken parts of heart and soul that are so full of unknown riches. Uh, so that's Rajashree for you. In her own words.
Hi, Priya, and thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was kind of nervous when you told me about this. Like I told you, it's a first for me. As a journalist and also as a screenplay writer, one is used to interviewing these days now online. But being on the other side of the table, that's a new one for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that even I realized whenever you are a writer, when
Yeah.
you write something, you have all the time in the world for the right words to ring in, and
Yes.
you
Yes.
have time to go back, look for synonyms, look for the way they are structured, look for
Exactly.
pronunciations.
Exactly.
But when you are like on screen, it's like, okay, boom, you just have to talk now.
Yeah, it's also impromptu, and one is searching for the right words, especially when one has to express what needs to be said and make a point, right? So, yeah, ask me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Uh, so Rajashree, since when have you been writing? And you have this certain style. I call it the undone style to your
Yeah,
writing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
nothing prim proper. It's somewhere all over. It describes everyday things in a
yeah.
very extraordinary manner.
Thank
Since
you.
when have you been writing? And could you tell us a little about your writing journey?
Yeah, actually, you know what, my writing journey um, is surprisingly and strangely and beautifully tied to my journey of self-acceptance. So I started out, I mean, like all writers, you would know that, used to be very active with essays and elocution and all that. Essays more than elocution in school. So I knew I loved writing. And you'll be surprised to know that I'm a graduate in chemistry. I majored in chemistry. But I knew that I wanted to do something with writing. I didn't have the discipline to be a researcher anyway or do anything with science, So I started out as an advertising copywriter. But because, it just so happened, it was an impulse. It was not a carefully thought out decision at all. And I am an impulsive person mostly, So I just read this interview of this creative director from J. Walter Thompson, and she was a writer, and I was so impressed. That was in Femina, and I was so impressed with everything that she said. It sounded so exciting to be a copywriter that I decided I want to be a copywriter. This is what I'm going to do, you know. And I joined an agency. I did my diploma in communications from Xavier, and I joined an agency, and everything was very exciting. Okay, advertising is a very different world, especially if you've not been connected to it or people that kind of crowd all your life, And this was uh, 95, 96 when I started out. Um, and you suddenly see this very hip, cool people, uh, you know, doing all these cool things, making all this, listening to a kind of music, speaking a kind of language which is so full of words and slangs that one is not typically used to. I came from a very middle class background and I was not, uh, you know, exposed to that kind of life. And it all sounded very fascinating. And I did that for um, 8 years till I knew increasingly that this is not me, you know. I'll tell you why, because advertising copy needs a kind of brevity. You need to say a lot with few words. You only have limited word count there. Unlike in journalism, where we still have 3 pages to make a point, right? So I realized that I just stuck to it because, okay, I've spent 7 years now doing this. And, the money is coming in. It's good money coming in. And no one's really complaining. I moved from agency to agency and all of that. But I knew that that was like an eye opener for me. I was not listening to the voice inside me that was telling me that, for the longest time, like till I was in my 5th year as a copywriter, I continued and I said, this is what I want. It's all cool. I'm, going to parties, hanging out with the great friends, wearing a kind of outfit, looking all cool. That was very superficial for me. And then, but what really made me question was the fact that I wasn't moving in a progressive direction. I wasn't being promoted. I was senior copywriter, and that's it. And I initially, like all things, you don't want to face why that is happening. You want to think that, okay, someone's giving you a raw deal. You want to put it down to office politics in your head, in your head, you want to put it down to office politics. So I did that too. I was still in my early 20s, very little wisdom on hand to think otherwise. And then I had an evaluation meeting with my creative director, who was honest enough to tell me that, Raji, I don't, you've only moved till this and you haven't made much, you haven't done much. I feel there are other people who are doing better. He was brutally frank, it hurt me. But that also made me realize that this is not what I want to do. I want to write more. I want more of my words to be coming out, not less. I want to, and therefore all the long copy would come to me wherever it involved long copy. And I quit. One day I just quit. I said, unless I burn those bridges, it's not going to happen. I'm in my comfort space. This is not going to happen. So I quit. For 2 years, I wandered around doing things that paid me, but wasn't me. I was still trying to discover myself. And then in 2006, I got into feature writing with a typical writing test and all of that after still in my mid-30s when I was doing writing tests. But I spent 5 years with this very niche magazine as a feature writer and then a features editor. And I loved it. And I loved, what I loved most, I can speak for myself as a writer. What I enjoy most about writing is that I get to write about people. I love writing about people. I love talking to people. I love observing people. And I love them in their entirety. And I think I enjoyed that, be it a farmer, be it this 79-year-old housewife who's making pickles, somewhere in Haryana, and or be it a botanist or later on all the celebrity interviews and all of that. But any kind of person, I loved observing people and knowing them as they would like to be understood. That was my, that moved me a lot. That, there is something else that someone is trying to show you. So my writing has been, then of course I moved on to Femina as associate editor, where we met. And those were wonderful years. Those 4 years, I had some of the best stories coming out. And then moved on to screenplay writing. I wrote a film in Malayalam. I'm working on my next right now. So now on to documentary writing. But yes, I have not stopped feature writing at all. And I don't ever wish to or plan to. I want to continue, no matter what kind of films or whatever I do. I love this. I love talking about people. So yes, for me, writing has been about, people and my acceptance of my own, failures and flaws. And that has been a huge curve for me. Yeah.
And it is so amazing to read what you write is about people without any without any filters. These days, it's been very easy to camouflage our flaws through filters, but writing is unfiltered. It is seeing people as they are,
Absolutely.
with all their rawness and who they really are.
Yes, yes.
So speaking about women here, Rajashree, because it's Women's Week, we'll be discussing more about women.
Right.
You have interviewed so many of them. You have been around so many of them.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you think? At what stage are women at? Have they completely accepted who they are, or do you still find women struggling with their accepting, whether it is their body, whether it is their sexuality, whether it is their needs? Are women really?
I think, that is a question which is quite challenging to answer, also because women, I think we are living amidst great, the best times really in terms of, how body image and nudity and, so many aspects of our body parts about, you know, being a certain form, being a certain shape, being a certain skin tone is being spoken about. And people who have that kind of body, who have that kind of skin form, which they otherwise, held as a limitation, they are coming out and being proud about it and saying this too, deserves as much space as the rest did till now. So, but I think, self-acceptance based on the women I've met, interviewed, and my own journey, and the journey of my friends and people I have known, especially women. I think we are all coming into our own. Uh, I feel all of us speak a lot uh, more confidently than our parents did, our mothers did, you know, about what we want and what we don't want. At least now we know what we don't want. A lot of women, earlier we dwelled on what we want, but now so many of us are being clearer as much about what we don't want. This is what I don't want, and that could be I don't want uh, to be the CEO. I want to be a homemaker. Got it? Or I don't want to be a homemaker. I want to be the CEO. And both voices, while I still feel people who choose to be homemakers are still not getting the kind of significance and applause that they should. And I'm not saying this to sound good, but genuinely, I feel that. I mean, so many of my friends, and even now, I'm a freelance writer, so I'm cooking and juggling a phone call while I'm doing my roti or whatever. So we know how it is as women. But I feel I should make an important point here, Priya. Um, I won't name the person, but I had interviewed this headlining actor, female actor, some years ago, about 5 years ago. And she has it all. She has it all, okay? And she's hugely successful, amazingly beautiful, fit, and all of that. And in my interview with her, there is something very interesting that she said. She said that, my I used to watch a lot of international European films because when I would sit with my friends and my boyfriend and our crowd, I didn't have much to contribute. They all spoke about international films, and I wasn't contributing enough to the conversation. And then I bought all these DVDs, and I watched. I made a promise to myself that I watch one every day. Very avant-garde kind of films, and keep myself abreast of what is happening. And then I realized that but it's not something I enjoy. I'm not understanding what is being said sometimes, but I'm watching this only so I can make the right noises in that conversation. And I'm not watching it because I really want to watch it. Now, this is something, and I felt an empathy with her at that time. So she said, I said, that happened to me also, not with films, but I love Mills and Boon romances. I love them. For a long time when I was in advertising and even as, a newfound future writer, I was kind of ashamed to admit that I love Mills and Boon. That a huge part of my bookshelf is Mills and Boon. I have a collection of Mills and Boon because all my friends and my colleagues scoffed at that. Okay, that it is lowbrow reading, you're not exposed to great literature. So yes, there is a perception that way. But I realized that I love reading it. I mean, I love reading an Amitav Ghosh. I love reading an Amitav Ghosh. But this is as much of self-acceptance, that this is who we are. This is who I am. I may be, the romantic idiot that we all want to call ourselves. But yeah, I enjoy reading an Amitav Ghosh as much as I love reading Milton Ghosh. Self-acceptance is very nuanced that way, I feel. In so many parts of ourselves, we have to accept. And I'm trying to make it as I quoted that example of that actor only because it's a journey for her who's got it all as much as for me who's trying to, get there. So, yes.
For me, you are my Kamla Das, and for me, you are my Chuktai also.
Yes,
So
yes. Just accept. I feel acceptance is just, it's a mirror, and it's a journey. It's not going to happen in one day. It's not going to happen in one day. It's not like one fine day you accept that, you are this. You're not going to just make those changes overnight. For every 5 steps that you take ahead, you're still going to, slip maybe 6 steps again. But it is just that keeping at it. I found that out only in my 40s, and I've come more into myself now. It's been the best decade of my life, really, because I accepted so many things about myself. And it reflects in my writing, I feel, increasingly so. There is a measure of empathy that creeps in when you are able to forgive yourself, for many things. Then I feel, because you're aware of where you have slipped, I think you're able to look at the other person with a whole lot of forgiveness when they slip. It's only when we are constantly trying to not look at our flaws, not accept that we are fickle, or we are not so committed, or we are not so loyal, or we fake it and we are hypocritical and whatever. We have to accept, and we may not be that all the time. We may not be, a hypocrite every day. We may not lie every day. We may not fake it every day. There are days when we do it. There are days when we don't. So I'm looking at it that way, more as a, I'm allowed to be that. I'm allowed to do that. But yes, that gives us more empathy to not stand on judgment with others, because we often seek kindness. We keep talking about, we keep sharing these messages about be kind, be kind, be kind. But when you are kind to others, is also when you get kindness in return. How prepared are we to be kind to someone? When they show us their warts, how prepared are we? So I wasn't for a long time, I think. Now I increasingly am. But yeah, it's a journey. Most days I slip.
I read the post that you had written about this.
Yes.
That you were not kind at first, and it's very difficult for me to believe that you not being kind would exactly mean what. But
thank you so much. That means a lot.
But you're so honest in your writings and in your portrayal of women, and have people like, as a controversial, unapologetic writer, I'm often scared to share my stuff with my mom, or I was dreading that she would come across my wall and see all these pictures, which she eventually did and asked me to take it down, but I did not do that. But have you come across people who have kind of
yeah, I have actually. So I used to write a lot about sensuality, sexuality, lust, love, and all of it. Sometimes individually, those sentiments or those traits, and sometimes those qualities, and sometimes they're all this complex layer together. And many times, like I've had a friend telling me that, why do you write so much about sex? Why are you so obsessed with sex? And I said, I like it. I like writing about it, I really love writing about it. And I've been, in some ways, I felt that statement was trying to reduce everything that I am, what my friend said, into something so, not trashy, but I felt like you didn't understand me. you know. You understand me as a friend, but you haven't understood this facet of me as a writer. That I love writing about. I wouldn't, I think romance is a very limited word, but I think there are so many connections that happen between two people. They keep coming undone, and then they, you know, you find that with someone else. Sometimes you find that with the same person so many times. And it is so complex. How can one not write about it? It is so central to uh, our lives, and it fascinates me. And when I say that, it's not just sexuality, but our sensuality, as our capacity to touch, to reach out and hug, and all of that fascinates me. I mean, I think we are the only species, I think, among very few that really demonstrates it, you know, so visibly, how it feels to hug and how it feels to just touch without necessarily mating. So
And I think it's not just about the hug and the touch, but also the ability to express how we
yes,
feel about it in terms of words, in terms of
yes.
uh,
So I feel
art.
that, as a writer, that I feel initially, I was kind of asked that, are you trying to sensationalize it just to get more attention? And that kind of amused me a bit, because if you've known me, you know that I'm that kind of person who's, um, uh, at Femina, I'd had the chance to write a lot of stories on intimacy and relationships. And I've never felt ever embarrassed about any of the questions that I had to ask the men or the women, ever, ever, not once. No matter how intimate those questions were, I've never felt embarrassed. So it's very difficult to make me feel embarrassed then about what I write, because I refuse to. That's one thing it's very non-negotiable for me, that this is what I would like to write about. As a person, I may have many things that I'm not very sure about my own self. But as a writer, I refuse to let anyone tell me what I should be writing. That's all.
Awesome. So I think these complexities also filter in your writing, where nothing is really black and white. It is
Yeah.
all 50 shades of not just gray, but so many other colors.
Yes.
Uh, so that is really admirable, uh,
Thank
the
you.
way you write. And every time I think about old trinkets and saris and gajras, I
Uh,
am always reminded of you, although we don't speak so
so
often.
much, but yeah,
I
I know it totally
something
is.
about old stuff, the smell of books always reminds me of you, and I
Oh,
really
that is so sweet. Yeah, that is so sweet.
yeah.
Thank you.
So what inspires you to write every day? I know that for me, it just comes like some unknown power comes into me, and it tells me that you have to sit and write down here and
Yes,
now, no matter what you are doing next. So
yes,
it is a little annoying sometimes when I have to teach a yoga
exactly.
class, and then it's the class starts at 6:45, and 6:40 I'm like wanting to
Yes,
write something, and then
yes,
that power
yes,
is angry with me and just leaves, okay, because
yeah.
she's like, if you're not going to honor me right now, then
Not going to happen. I'm
is
not
it
going to come.
is it similar, or
Yes,
how
yes.
do you make notes and then maybe go home and write, or how do you
Um,
write those little lines?
I think I'm a lot like you in that way. I think most writers get seized by this feeling, even the disciplined ones, right, who make time for writing. The muse will not always show up, as everyone says, but so sometimes this thought just surfaces, like, and I feel it is in the mundane, always something about the mundane which triggers me to, look at it, or probably at that point, it's like almost begs me to look at it and say something. It's always that way. I think for most of us, many of us, I would say. So I'm not a disciplined writer. I don't make a time that these are the hours, unless I'm working on a story. Then yes, I have a little more disciplined, I would say. But writing in general, I think when I feel it, um, I just quickly make a note, like just the words that come into my mind on my phone, and I write it down. Typically, I just write it down. Then, when I'm done with my chores and I look at it, and then it's the same thing. You chisel it down, and you feel, no, this is not what I really wanted to say. There is more here. There is more here. Sometimes you feel, no, this is exactly what you want to say, and put it up. But I'm very drawn to uh, writing about the ordinary. I think I love writing about the ordinary, be it people, be it places, the smells that surround us. It can be limiting at times because sometimes I feel like I'm not pushing myself enough beyond this. But you know, I love writing about them. So why should I stop? But yeah, so I like one thing I've realized is I like to probe deeply into, when someone shows up their vulnerable side, okay, when they think they are being, the ugliest, or they think they are being uh, probably a point that they wouldn't want to show someone in public, and you see that. Okay. I'm not trying to be poetic here or try to make good prose here, but I find it uh, enormously beautiful. Someone losing their shit sometimes, because I feel that is like so raw, so heartbreaking and so raw. It could be just losing your temper. It could be, like a manual scavenger, you know. I mean, while they're doing their jobs, like I've noticed everyone, be it the Gajra seller, there is more to her that she's willing to show you. You just take, sometimes we don't even look at a person's face when we're buying things or interacting with things. We only look into people's eyes when they happen to be people we know or familiar with or love. But how often do we look into people's eyes otherwise? And I find that sometimes you look into a person's eyes, a woman or a beggar, and this is not to be compassionate, but there is so much there, beyond that person that appears to be. There is so much.
There are a lot of unfortunate things about the world that we live in. One of them
Right.
is the phone, because no matter what we are doing, we are one side of us is always into the phone, and that is when we miss out on these little things that never
Yes.
really show
Yes.
themselves up
Yes.
again.
And
And another thing is, a lot of people are unwilling to open up. Like when I teach yoga now, I see when people are unable to open their hips, or when they are not able to go into forward folds and surrender themselves.
yeah.
They're always so uptight and rigid. So I think writing transforms you as a person.
Yeah.
It makes you more accepting, not just about yourself, but completely non-judgmental
Yes.
about other people and their journeys. And
Yes.
uh, you, in an instant, you might think, oh, this person is like that, but then you go
Yeah.
back and then you again think that no, maybe this
Yeah.
person has had a journey that is very, very different, and that has cemented
Yes.
him or her
Yes.
to become the
Yes.
person they are.
Yes. And how boring would it be if we all had the same kind of flaws and
Yeah.
we all had the same
If we
thing?
all were perfect, that is
Yeah.
something that I am learning to let go, because when I see the way even you drape your saris and your hair, and
Thank
it
you.
is that whole undoneness of your writing is also in your personality. It's like a well-groomed garden, and it's this wild, wild forest which is
Oh,
blooming with wildflowers.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I tried uh, being a certain kind of person. We are being very honest. I tried being something that I'm not in my appearance, and even in my writing history. But it's much better, and I feel a lot better just being me. Feel a
Because there
lot.
are times when we plant and then we structure things, and then we allow them to just grow
Yeah.
and blossom on their own. And I
Yeah.
think the latter uh, is
Yeah.
way more
I felt like,
attractive.
yeah, it's just that I feel, I think when I see you write, when I see you post, in fact, all my friends that I've known as writers, and over the years, their tone of writing, what they're willing to write, what they choose to write about. It's so interesting, You feel like you are with, I mean, for me as a writer, I'm witnessing another writer's journey. The way you used to write earlier, your earlier post versus the post you do now, it's what a graph, what an arc, yeah. Like I love that, And that my writer friends who don't write as much now, I really want them to write a lot. So because they have so many interesting things to talk about that I know of. But it's
I know,
beautiful
like
to see
one
that.
message from you, and then it just kind
Yeah.
of annoys me for the rest of the time that, oh my God, Rajashree's pinged. I don't want her to ping again.
No, I think yeah, but writing is about confronting your dark side and your sunshine, both. You have to. I just think, like I just very strongly feel that now, uh, when we step out, there is this world, part of it which is wanting to tear you down, part of it which wants to lift you up, and part of which that wants to leave you alone, you know. So on different days, we'll have different journeys of self-acceptance happening. Some days we move out and we come in contact with the first word outside, and that presides over the whole day, and that makes us slip, take six steps, regress, and those days are when we find it so difficult to be accepting of ourselves. I refuse to believe that any one course or any one self-help book or any life coach can just uh, alter us overnight. It cannot happen. But it's a slow journey. At least for me, I can speak for myself. It is a slow journey. It will happen, and which is why it's important. I feel strongly that one should not try and be part of that world where one wants to tear someone down, not because it's good to do so. I'm not making a moral statement here, but there are so many days when I wished I wasn't so toned down, by something I said when I revealed a vulnerable part of myself and I was rejected. I felt, maybe a stranger, maybe a friend. It becomes difficult then to share. And I think we just need to, which is why words are so precious, and how you put them out there can make such a lot of difference in our conversations too with others. So one has to choose them carefully, I feel.
So I think we can just go on
On and
talking.
on, yeah, yeah.
Uh, any message that you would like to send out to women who are still struggling to accept themselves, their bodies, their sexualities?
I feel women have to first face the fact that uh, they have to accept that part of them will always be flawed, always. And what is flawed will, what we understand as flawed, uh, the body. I think self-image, a lot of it can be worked on. Your body, a lot of it can be worked on. It's your choice to make it, happen. But you shouldn't be waiting for all of it to happen till you become happy with yourself. This is something I'm borrowing a quote from someone. You don't have to wait for the bad times to be over to start being happy. I think that quote opened a lot for me. And there's a singer Nightbird that said it. I think women just, we shouldn't wait for that perfect body, the perfect level of confidence, the perfect appearance, the perfect crease in our clothes, or to start being happy with ourselves. Of course, we are going to talk about ourselves. We are very negative when we talk to ourselves, and it's normal. But I think the practice I make is, let's just talk about our normal things, dwell over it, but then remind ourselves. The moment we talk, I say I'm hypocritical, I'm not able to meet this deadline, I'm not committed. Remind yourself at the same time or the same day, if you can, about what is so beautiful about you. And there is so much that is beautiful about us. I'm trying to do that now. So because I'm a lot of negative self-talk that happens. But this is helped. The negative talk won't go away. It doesn't just miraculously go away. But remind yourself after the negative talk that there is this, that you've got a lovely smile, if your face
You're
has.
wearing bangles, right?
Yes, yes. These are all kadas from different gurdwaras. Thanks.
Okay, Janvi, Ratna, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to ask Rajashree any questions?
Ratna is your friend?
Janvi is my friend.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Okay, then. I think this went well. Rajashree, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.